And what Russia has done to Crimea is such a lie. It's such a deception. It's so evil. But I do not believe that Crimea will be in their hands forever. But I have a daughter, by the way. Before the full-scale invasion, when she was a little girl, for some reason, she became fascinated with Crimea, and she began collecting like artifacts from the 19th century Crimean War and books about Crimea. And over the years, we have taken a great interest there. And for some reason, I keep meeting people who are displaced from Crimea. And boy, if you want to meet a passionate Ukrainian, meet a Crimean. There, and I don't just mean the Tartars who were persecuted, who were kicked out, who were murdered. I mean anybody from Crimea. They are passionate. By the way, where is your wife from? What
She's
city?
from Kyiv directly.
Okay.
And she's an interesting mixture also because her father, he was raised in Melitopol, and he's absolutely pro-Ukrainian, and he was an orphan, and he was adopted by a nice babushka Dina. She's passed away now, and so he grew up there, and then he met his wife, and the mother of my wife, she is from Western Ukraine. And so the child, my wife Yulia, she grew up bilingual, perfectly bilingual. Mother was speaking Ukrainian to her, and father was speaking Russian to her, and they just kept their language. But now her father,
Yeah.
at age of 75, he says, "I don't want to speak Russian anymore. I want to speak Ukrainian. Тільки
Of course.
говорити українською мовою."
Was her mother from Ivano-Frankivsk in the West?
She was from a small village. Actually, I cannot tell you because I forgot. It was not a big village, and I never met her mother. She passed away with cancer at the age of 54. It was just before I
One
met
of
my wife.
my own story is my great grandfather at the beginning of the 20th century was from Lviv, and he was essentially pursued by Russians, and he was hiding in a chimney, and his friend said, "We're going to help you get to America on one condition, to get away from the Russians and get to America. The condition is you need to go make some money and then bring back one member of each of our family." And he did. He made it to America. He married another girl from Lviv who came over,
Uh-huh.
and they went to Boston and Massachusetts, and he started a business. He was successful. And then he brought over 16 Ukrainians, and they started a little Ukrainian community
Wow.
in New England. So I had the privilege of going back to where he lived, the first member of my family in 100 years to go back uh, when I returned for the first time after the full scale invasion. So that's my Ukrainian connection.
So that was your ancestors also who were those in Boston, you say? Did I get you right?
Yes, that's correct. My grandfather's father,
Aha, wow.
and so
So you
he basically was fleeing Russians,
you
and he left Lviv.
yeah.
But they had been in Lviv, I think, for a very long time. I mean, going back many generations.
Yeah, that is really so interesting. And did you you live partly in the United States and partly in Ukraine, right? You tell me.
No, I live in the United States, but I travel back and forth
Hmm.
through Europe and Ukraine, and I film abroad a great deal. I would be very happy to live in Ukraine part-time because I'm in love with Ukraine and I
Yeah.
love Ukraine. Some people run from things. I run into things. So when I see problems, I want to run to the problem. And for me, every time Ukraine is very exciting, very thrilling. I'm very happy to be there. Let's put it that way. It makes me very happy to be in Ukraine,
I,
and I hope to get back. I hope to get back sometime at the beginning of the new year.
I can perfectly understand you. If you go to Ukraine the next time, please let me know. I also want to
Yes.
go, I also want to go. Hopefully we can meet. I was the last time in Ukraine in October 22, which is so long ago already. And
Oh, you
there
need to go back.
Yeah, and there I started to understand that I have to learn the language too. Even if I'm married to a Ukrainian woman, she speaks so perfectly German now, and French and English. So we didn't have the I didn't have the necessity to learn Ukrainian kind of, but now I started to learn because it's so important, this language. It's so
It,
beautiful also.
I'm in the same position. I'm wanting to learn Ukrainian more than just the 20 words that I know. I
Yeah.
want to be able to speak it more properly. But how wonderful that you live in a household where you guys are essentially quadrilingual, English, French, German, and a little bit of and Ukrainian with your wife. That's wonderful. Maybe there's more. Do you speak Italian?
Poco italiano anche parlo.
Okay, very
so,
good.
so no, but learning languages. This is from my father. He said this is so important. So much to tell, so much to tell, and it's just incredible. Speaking languages, that opens also your mind to the other cultures, and if you know the other cultures,
Yes,
then you are not so probable to kill them. But
yes,
it's not
right.
it's not a complete recipe against it, because Vladimir Putin, for example, he speaks also perfect German, but he likes to use this language to deceive people. So the mindset is very important. But
But
languages,
we have to remember, and I try to explain this to my friends in the United States, especially my friends. This is a very difficult moment in the United States because the people who should be the most freedom oriented, conservatives and people on the right, the people of Ronald Reagan, the party of Ronald Reagan, who
oh yeah.
should be defending the innocent, who should be. That's my background, by the way. I worked for a United States president. I was a some time ago, and
A United States president you worked for?
this is the people that should of everyone. I did. I worked for President Bush briefly
Wow,
for about a
okay.
year and a half. I was a presidential appointee back once upon a time. And I
Wow.
wrote speeches and I did various things like that. And I
Wow.
didn't agree with him on everything, by the way, but it was an interesting opportunity. And my father was a man who was very high ranking in the Nixon cabinet during the 1970s,
Wow.
or in the Nixon presidency, I should say. He ran a government agency, and he actually dismantled the government agency. So and then during the 1980s, when I was a very young man, I was working on behalf of, not directly for President Reagan, but for people that were supporting President Reagan, who were in the Senate in fighting essentially working against the Russians and the Cubans in sub-Saharan Africa. So I was in Angola, I was in Namibia with my own I wasn't carrying. I did carry a weapon, but it wasn't to fight them. It was to protect myself.
Mm.
But I was there gathering intel to help the United States defend freedom fighters against the Soviets and the Cubans who were destabilizing the world there. So I have a lifetime of anti-communism. And what I would say is that um, Vladimir Putin, what's so sad for me is that the people that should understand this is a Marxist Leninist trained KGB officer whose entire life has been dedicated to murder and conquest. And he is the king of deception. And there's a verse in the Old Testament of the Bible, and it says, "There arose a generation which knew not Joseph," and it's speaking of the days of Egypt,
Hmm.
where all of a sudden people forgot the previous generations, and
Yeah.
that's when bondage took place because they forgot their history.
Yeah.
And that's where we are today, where we have forgotten who is this man, Vladimir Putin. He helped run the Soviet Union. He's not some liberal oriented nice guy. He is a mass murderer, a rapist, and a very perverted individual himself, causing devastation everywhere. And Americans should understand that because we spent decades and decades and decades dealing with this problem. But this present generation knows not Joseph. They have forgotten the past, and that's causing problems. So part of our mission. So I'm director of an organization called Ukraine Story. We do journalism and filmmaking, and we produce documentaries. And one part of our mission is to deal with Russian propaganda. Another is to just build love and hope through filmmaking for people
Hmm.
by telling stories, Ukrainian stories. So we do both. But it's very difficult for me here in America at times because the Americans under the present administration have a bit of a love affair with Putin. And it's like embracing the devil. It's just extraordinary to me.
Yeah.
And I think the day will come when everyone will be quite embarrassed that anyone even thought this way.
By
You
for yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
you
yeah.
mentioned you mentioned this legacy in Germany, which is very challenging for the present generation of Germans, but the Germans have overcome it. What I've seen in Germany is very impressive in terms of a generation that understands we don't want to be part of that past. I realize you have lots of political tensions there still in Germany. I know that's true,
You
but
know,
all of my friends from Germany are leading the charge in helping people to see things correctly.
you know
Here in
what.
America, we should be doing the same thing.
You know when Americans will overcome this tragedy one day and that they will realize that Donald Trump was a big lie and that Vladimir Putin is the devil, he's
Yeah,
the guy on the ground for the devil, then when we
yeah,
overcame all of that, then we must learn our lesson from history. And we Germans have kind of learned our lessons in the beginning. Just yesterday, I had a chance to make an interview with the grandson of Konrad Adenauer, the first German chancellor. What a great man Konrad Adenauer was! Incredible! It's just so incredible to see
wow.
what Konrad Adenauer had a clear vision, and he was so courageous, and that's why he was doing the right things, and that's why our German country was in NATO, and it was in the European Union, and it was straightforward. Other than the East Germans, the poor people are there, they had to be under Russian control, and that's why they are twisted. And after the reunification, the Germans, they got mixed up between twisted people, I say, and between Western German people who
Hmm.
were like just like those Americans now, who forgot about their past.
Yeah,
Because our problem was that we forgot also about our past because it was so nice. We were living in Hotel Mama. The great American daddy will take care of us, and they will have the weapons. Weapons are evil, but let's use the Americans the weapons. We are pacifists, and we never use weapons, and that's why Germany was morally on the right side. They thought, but they forgot about their past, and that's also what I want to give to the Americans the advice, and also to us Germans, that we must, when we overcome that catastrophe, and hopefully it does not come to the biggest catastrophe, the World War III or four, how you call it, when we manage to settle down again, then we have to get one very important lesson, and this will be: we must educate ourselves and learn every day the past. Never forget our ancestors, and never forget the mistakes they have done. Always educate ourselves and teach our children the right things. That propaganda has no chance.
it's it's it is almost as important as almost anything else that we do just that. And in America today, we have people that are. So to give you a little bit more background on myself, I have directed and produced three or four, I have to count the number, television series and films on World War II. And they broadcast all over the world. I have a film
Wow.
earlier this year that was broadcasting, a 7-part series that was broadcasting in Poland. And I have a film which has not been released which was very interesting. I traveled with a very famous American coach through Europe, bringing veterans of World War II back, and then doing big reenactments. We had reenactments with tanks and soldiers. We are at the D-Day beaches and various things like that. And my host, who was one of America's most famous coaches and a very, very good man, his name was Bobby Bowden. The show is called Bobby Bowden Goes to War.
Uh-huh.
Is shows the parallels between athletics and warfare. Because he was a coach, he brought that perspective. But interestingly, he went and he spent 3 days with Rommel's son, just to talk to him, to get to know the son of Rommel. And
Rommel.
the reason why, and of course, Rommel is a very interesting character in World War II history. He's a little bit different, part of the plot to kill Hitler. Different, different, different than the typical Nazi general. And I think he was Wehrmacht, if I'm correct. But an interesting man, Rommel, very interesting. And uh, his son, certainly in terms of the interviews between my guy, I don't know if he's alive anymore. I think he's dead now.
Rommel son was the mayor of Stuttgart, right?
That's right.
I
That's
know
right.
him.
Yes.
I
Right.
didn't. He was mayor of Stuttgart when I was a boy. I come from this
Yep.
part of Germany.
So my host, the one I filmed with, met with him 25 years ago. It was a while back. So it wasn't part of my television series, but he talks about it in the television series. He talks about, and he had some pictures and some drawings from the time with Rommel's son. I always found it very remarkable and very interesting. In any event, back here in America right now, there's a lot of revision of World War II, which is taking place, and it's taking place on the right. And the people that are doing it, people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, these are very big voices. They're very anti-Semitic. They're very hateful, and they're very misinformed. But they're leading tens of millions of people,
It's
tens of
incredible.
millions,
Incredible.
into believing. Do you know this expression, hogwash? Hogwash is an American term for nonsense. It
Hogwash.
means hogwash. It means absolute lies, and they're leading millions into thinking these things. And their arguments are so flimsy. They're so poor.
Hmm.
It's not an argument, an intellectual argument. It's an emotional argument.
Yeah, and
It's sort of a blame. It, it's appealing to, essentially appealing to fear, appealing to conspiracy, and appealing to a perspective which is everybody's lying to you except for me. I'm the only person who isn't lying to you, so believe me. But the reality is, those people that are vocalizing that are communicating ignorance of American and world history.
how can you how can you overcome that? That's I have you
Here
have,
for
yeah, you have met so many
we just
people.
we try to break down the arguments. We try to come back to them. But a problem is, if a person has taken this poison into their system, they don't know how to get rid of it. And you can think about this in terms of you know 1928 to 1936 in Germany, where the Germans have suffered the defeat of World War One. The Europeans are not kind to the Germans after World War One. An environment is created where there's it's an environment which is ripe for a strong man to come and say, look at these people that have caused all your problems. Look at these people. We can be great again. We can be the people we're supposed to be. Make Germany great again. We can do these things. And people want relief, and they want to blame somebody, and they want to think they're better. And in those moments, strong men come, and they're very, very persuasive, because people are fallible. People are weak. If they're not grounded, if they don't have a sort of a moral, spiritual, intellectual grounding in truth, they can quickly become deceived and think that they're right about things. That happens all the time in history. It happened in your country. It's happening in my country right now. And we have to fight that very strongly. But it's a real problem.
Tell me one thing. I want to know, how could it be possible that Donald J. Trump, after all that mess he has caused in his very first presidency, which was a mess par excellence already, and then this very old, very old guy called Joe Biden had the chance to become. That's another story. Why did the Democrats haven't been able to put someone right in the place there? But okay, so but for the second term, Donald Trump came back once again, and this is for me the most ridiculous thing, that the people that the Joe Biden administration was not able to put Donald Trump into jail, put him out of order, just finish this thing. No, just they managed. How could this be possible, that the Americans vote again for Donald Trump? Can you please tell me?
Well, I guess this is what I would say. America. It's important to understand that when a person wins the presidency, it isn't necessarily because most people agree with him on everything or follow everything. They have a couple of issues that are important to them, and they think this guy's going to help me solve the problem. So President Biden had some weaknesses that caused great fury in America. And those weaknesses were a capitulation to the woke culture that was driving people crazy. The second was an open borders immigration policy, which was also driving people crazy. And he never made the case properly for Ukraine. So he was for Ukraine. He gave help to Ukraine, but he stopped Ukraine from winning. He didn't, his mission was not for Ukraine to have victory. It was to keep Ukraine alive, just alive. And the result was that that created contempt with the American people because the American people never got from the president, here's why we have to do this and we have to win. There was no Churchill message from Joe Biden. It was, Russians are bad and we want to help them. But so the American people became resentful and they thought, well, we're just pouring money and there's no end in sight. This is terrible. Whereas what President Biden could have done is he could have ended the war. It could be over in 2022.
Yeah.
That would have meant having a vision of victory,
Yeah.
right? Biden did not have that. And one of the reasons why Putin probably chose February 24th of 2022 is because 4 months beforehand, we had a catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan. So this is where American people were. And I'm answering your question, but I want to give you the background. The American people saw, number one, weakness with Joe Biden and his foreign policy, first in Afghanistan, and then the sort of open-ended, what are we doing in Ukraine? We don't really understand. Whereas we had a strong moral imperative to help Ukraine. We had we had the Budapest Memorandum. We had everything that should have said defend Ukraine. But this was not clarified. It was not explained, and we just kept them on life support. And then the secondly was we had mobs in our streets from open borders that were driving people crazy. And then we had crazy woke policy that was making people angry. Okay, so the people that were upset about that, Donald Trump capitalized on that. And he said, I'm going to do three things. I'm going to end all wars, which of course was ridiculous. He said, number two, I'm going to close the borders, which he's doing now, but he's doing in a way which is actually quite frightening, to have people running through our streets with masks on, grabbing people out of cars and hitting them and pushing them against walls. It's not an American form of justice. And I think you have to address the immigration problem. It's extremely serious, but we have to do it according to law and justice, not just brutally. And finally, he said, I'm going to end the woke stuff. And 50% of the American people said, we're so tired of that. Fine. And then in that group, a large number of people said, we're in an existential battle in our country between this sort of deep state, these unknown elites that are trying to control everything. And Donald Trump will take that down. So we had mythologies in America. We had anger. We had polarization. Remember, Trump didn't win by a landslide. He won by a little, but he won. Anger does that. Anger polarizes people. And the inability of the left to communicate hope, law, message, reasonability opens the door for a strongman who says, look, I'm going to end it.
Here we are. Here we are.
How I end it, you'll have to wait and see how I'm going to do it. I'm
Yeah.
going to end it with guns and I'm going to end it with masked officers in the streets, but I'm going to end it. And people are like, yeah, end it. It's like, okay, I'm not comparing Trump to Hitler. I'm not doing that. But you will remember that Hitler said, we have all this immorality in the cities. We have the dance houses. We have the brothels. And we're going to shut them down because we're better than that. And if you're an average German, you're thinking, yeah, I don't want Germany to be this immoral, low place. And he's going to help stop that. Go Hitler. And then it's like, oh, and it's the Jews. And then it's like, oh, it's this. And then it's, oh, that. But it's a process that gets you there, right? It starts off with, we're better than that. We're Germans. We shouldn't be having rampant immorality. We shouldn't be doing this. And, what a lot of people don't realize is that part of Hitler's call to action was a return to German morality. That's part of the message that came out. Of course, we laugh at that now because we know the whole story.
Yeah.
But it often stops that way, that, that Satan comes as a looking like an angel of light.
Yeah.
And in reality, he's anything but that.
Yeah, sure. That's real. It's a great problem. And people like Hitler, they, or like Donald Trump or like Putin, they make all by deception, because it's all about information. It's all about what the people think what is the truth. They don't know the truth, but they believe what is told to be the truth to them. And I guess the only thing we can do against it is to tell the truth in a way that people will understand it. We cannot convince those people who are really on the other side of, I compare the whole situation with a disc. Take a disc like that, pretend it's the flat Earth. Earth is flat now. No, it's not, but we live on a disc. On top of the disc is truth. Below the disc is lie. So, and here are people, and then you got propaganda from right. Putin tells all the time his lies, or Donald Trump, or Elon Musk. They tell their shitty lies, and the people, they shift from the disc, they shift from the center of the disc, from the truth, they shift to the other side, and all of a sudden they find themselves below it. Here's the truth for them, which is lie, and people. That I have this image in my head. Maybe I can visualize things. You are a filmmaker, and I know that that you can think in visual things. And sometimes you have to get the message really with very short memes and explain to the people how it works. So
it's true. We began this conversation, Christoph, talking about the different battlefields, and we said that one battlefield is, of course, the physical battlefield at the front line, the defense of Ukraine. That's obviously very dear to our hearts. That's without that battlefield, everything is gone. A second battlefield is the information war. And in that information war, I think one way to look at it is that there are two fronts to the information war. One is dealing with Russian propaganda, disinformation, misinformation that is now circulating, especially in America, more than any other place in America. And because, look, if the president of the United States says that, if the president says that Russia didn't invade Ukraine, Russia didn't start the war, then millions of ignorant people say, oh,
whoa.
like Russia didn't start the war. And they believe things, like there are, I don't know, it's like insanity, but people will believe it because it's said. So that's one part of the information war. But the second part of the information war is far more powerful, because you're correct. You're correct about something. The people that are deep into the conspiracies and deep into Russian propaganda, their minds have been poisoned. Their minds have been poisoned, and there's no reasoning with them. They're irrational. And all they know how to do is just to give out the same talking points from the Kremlin, nothing else. But there are many, many, many Americans who are not like that, actually. There are many Americans that are not invested in the discussion. There is a large community of Jews and Christians in America who, when you talk to them about the persecution of religious communities by Russia in Ukraine, they're sympathetic, very sympathetic. I mean, there are millions of people where you say, here is what Patriarch Kirill and Vladimir Putin are doing to murder people because of their faith in occupied areas of Ukraine. And the Russian Orthodox Church is a front for the Russian government. It isn't a church. It's a front for what they're doing. And you explain that to people, and then you say, let me show you the pictures and the stories and the testimonies of people that have been harmed. A lot of Americans are sympathetic, and they say, wow, I didn't know that. That's important. But what really helps them, what really, really helps them is when you show, and this is what Kyiv of Mine does, and this is why I believe in the message of Kyiv of Mine so much. When you show them, these people are you and me. They're you and me. They're like us. And by the way, America, do you remember 250 years ago, you had your War for Independence? This year, 250 years ago, you're celebrating your 250th birthday, 1776. So we're almost there. Do you remember that during this war, there were a lot of people who said, no, don't protect your families, don't do this, just do whatever the British government tells you to do. And others said, no, we are our own people. They're trying to destroy our identity. We need to protect ourselves, etc. That's why there's an America today. And guess what? There's an America today because the Dutch and the French came and helped America. And so did the Spaniards. Without the help of Europeans, no United States of America. We needed the Marquis de Lafayette. We needed the French ships. We needed all these things, or no United States of America. So our legacy is people helping. And our legacy was a legacy of freedom. And now, getting back to Kiev of mine, you listen to these beautiful people saying, I believe in freedom. I want to raise my children in freedom.
It's so obvious. It's so obvious.
I want to enjoy my culture. I'm not a Russian. I'm a Ukrainian.
Yeah.
I am a Ukrainian. And this is not Kyiv. It's Kiev. Kiev.
Funny about
It's
that.
not the Russian translation.
Funny about
it's
that,
like,
that moment. What you just mentioned was the woman who says it's Kyiv, Kyiv. It's and my wife sitting beside. Well, she's talking Russian. But because Russian was her first language when she was talking. And in the second episode, this very woman, she switched to Ukrainian and says she doesn't want to use the Russian language anymore. She was speaking Ukrainian. That was...
Ukrainians are done with the Russian language because it is perceived as the language of occupation, the language of persecution. And look, if Russia had never done any of this stuff, people would be speaking Russian and it would be fine.
Yeah.
But when it's kind of like,
bilingual.
okay,
Yeah.
so I'm talking to you today from a city in southern Texas. In my city, 70, something like 67 to 70% of the people, their first language is Spanish, not English, Spanish. But English is our language here, and we're not giving Texas back to the Mexicans. It's the United States of America. And it has been the United States. But the fact that some people speak a different language does not mean that we are Mexican. We're not. It just means that we are a polyglot of cultural influences and that we have some history behind who we are. Yeah. And so this propaganda point, which Russians have given for some time, which is, well, this is Russian-speaking people, so therefore we have a right to it. I mean, if you really believe that, Spain should occupy Mexico, and Mexico should occupy the United States of America, and on and on and on. It's complete nonsense, and it's foolishness.
Yeah,
But anyways, back to Kiev of mine. That message is laid out personally, humanly.
Yeah, this is so great. Kiev of mine is it's a film series that has to be shown everywhere, and I'm so glad that I could meet you today. We could talk forever and ever. It's such fun, but.
Well, Christoph, what we can do is this. Why don't we bring our podcast to an end? And we can always do part 2 and part 3 and talk about different things later. But it's been really fantastic and very happy to have this conversation with you. I love to speak to like-minded people. I love to talk about Kiev of mine. I love to talk about the beauty of the Ukrainian people. That's the message. There's a lot of people talking about war and death. We have to talk about that. That's important. But what I want to talk about is love and life. I want that because people need that. I want them to understand, because music brings us together. Love brings us together. Life brings us together. And that's why our world always needs artists and people to help tie this.
This warms my heart, and it warms the heart of so many people who are going to watch this. I know that. And it's absolutely the right way to bring this bad story of this war to a very good end, because the good will win. I'm very sure.
Of course it will.
And we can say Slava Ukraini, my переможемо. We will win.
Slava. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slava Ukraini.
Heroям слава.
Slava Ukraini.
It was
all
so
right.
good. It was so good talking to you. Well, you want to say something else?
What a pleasure, Christoph. Thank you so very, very much. And blessings to you in Germany.
Blessings to you, DW. Hope to talk to you very soon again, or in an appropriate while. Let's name it like that. Take care.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Christoph.
I will stop it here.